You can buy a piece of paradise that looks identical to the Bahamas right here in Australia, but on some of these islands, the government will legally cap your resale profit, force you to live there 6 months a year, or hand you a 99-year countdown clock instead of actual ownership. The beaches are real. The turquoise water is real. The catches are also real, and nobody in the brochure mentions them. 7 locations. 7 sets of traps. Stay for number 1, because that island has some of the strictest anti-speculation laws of any property market on earth, and the reason why is genuinely one of the more interesting stories in Australian real estate. Number 7. Esperance, Western Australia. Warton Beach, on the great southern coast of Western Australia near Esperance, was voted the 3rd best beach in the world for 2026. That is not a typo and not a tourism board exaggeration. It is a ranking from a travel publication that covers beaches globally, and the reason Warton Beach ranked where it did is the same reason the Caribbean ranks where it does. The sand is composed of high-purity quartz so fine it squeaks underfoot, and in shallow water that sand reflects light through the column in a way that turns the ocean an impossible shade of turquoise. Lucky Bay, just up the coast, has kangaroos on the beach. The combination is absurd. It does not look like Australia. It barely looks real. Here is the trap at Esperance. The rest of the world is starting to figure this out, and the property market is moving fast. Median house prices rose 36.72% in a single year. Units went up 40.29%. If you were thinking about Esperance as a quiet, affordable coastal option, that window is closing rapidly, and it may already be gone. The short-term rental market is currently undersupplied, with only 190 active listings across the entire Shire and an average occupancy of 6 to 4%. Peak summer pushes that to 83%. Right now, low competition means strong returns for early movers. But Esperance is a shallow market. When the broader economy tightens, regional towns like this can go very quiet very fast, and properties that took 32 days to sell in a boom can sit for 6 months in a correction. The beach is extraordinary. The market timing is the question. Number 6. Broome, Western Australia. Cable Beach is where bright red Pindan cliffs meet wide flat white sand and warm Indian Ocean water, and at sunset the camels walk across the foreshore and the sky turns colours that photographers travel across the country to capture. Broome is not a secret. It has been one of Australia's most recognisable tropical destinations for decades, and the property market reflects every year of that reputation. The headline number at Broome is the rental yield, 7.99% gross on houses, 11.39% gross on units, both figures driven by a rental vacancy rate of just 0.80% and a housing shortage so severe that typical inventory sits at barely 6 weeks of supply. These are yields that most coastal property markets in Australia cannot get close to. The average weekly rent for a unit is $845. For a house, $1,100. In a market where median unit prices sit around $375,000, the maths looks almost too good. The trap at Broome is the one that comes with every boom and bust resource town in the northwest. The underlying demand driver is not tourism. It is workers. Broome's rental market runs on the fly-in fly-out economy of the Pilbara and Kimberley regions, and when resource projects wind down or shift to different rosters, rental demand can fall abruptly and without warning. The same tight vacancy rate that makes the yield look compelling today is also the thing that can reverse if the workforce composition changes. The beach is spectacular. The yield is real. The risk is structural, not cosmetic. Number 5. Exmouth and the Ningaloo Reef, Western Australia. Turquoise Bay, at the edge of Cape Range National Park on the Northwest Cape, is where the red desert meets the reef. The water is shallow, clear, and warm, and the coral gardens directly offshore host whale sharks, manta rays, and more species of fish than most people will ever see in a lifetime of diving. The Ningaloo Reef is the largest fringing reef in the world, accessible directly from the beach, without a boat. It is genuinely one of the natural wonders of the continent, and most Australians have never been there. The property market at Exmouth has a structural constraint that makes it unlike almost anywhere else on this list. There is essentially nowhere to live. The vacancy rate sits at 0.30%. Not 3%. 0.30%. Median house prices have reached $895,000 with 14% growth over the past year, and the average time on market is 19 days. The town was built to service a US naval communications station and was never designed to accommodate large-scale tourism demand. The infrastructure has not caught up with the reef's reputation. The trap here is seasonal. The short-term rental market runs on the whale shark season, April to October, when occupancy hits 75% and the town fills with eco-tourists from around the world. From November to March, the occupancy collapses. The wet season brings cyclones. Cyclone Narelle hit Exmouth in March 2026 and damaged or destroyed over 30 structures, including the local airport. Building insurance in the Northwest Cape can exceed $10,000 annually for a standard dwelling, and that is before you account for the new mandatory state registration requirements for short-term rentals that came into effect in Western Australia on the 1st of January, 2025. The Reef is one of the best in the world. The 6 months around it require a plan. Number 4, Jervis Bay, New South Wales. Hyams Beach, inside the Jervis Bay Marine Park on the New South Wales south coast, holds a Guinness World Record for the whitest sand on Earth. The quartz purity is high enough that the sand does not hold heat. You can walk on it barefoot at noon in summer, and in the shallow protected bay, that same quartz turns the water a turquoise that travel writers routinely compare to the Bahamas or the Cayman Islands. It is 2.5 hours from Sydney. That proximity is both the appeal and the entire explanation for why the property market is the way it is. Median house prices in Huskisson, the main town on the bay, sit at $1,780,000. In Vicentia, across the water, $1,290,000. Long-term rental yields are compressed to the point of near irrelevance, 1.60% for houses in Huskisson. The reason anyone buys here for investment rather than lifestyle is the short-term rental market, and the reason the short-term rental market works here is a specific regulatory decision made by Shoalhaven City Council. New South Wales has statewide restrictions on unhosted short-term rentals, capped at 180 days per year in most regional areas. The Shoalhaven City Council opted out of those caps entirely. Unhosted short-term rentals in Huskisson and Vicentia can operate 365 days a year without restriction, which is the regulatory exception that makes the numbers work. Top-performing properties in Huskisson generate over $134,000 in annual short-term revenue. The trap is that this exemption exists because one council made one decision, and councils can change their decisions. If Shoalhaven ever aligns with the state framework, which housing pressure across New South Wales is making increasingly likely, the investment thesis for Jervis Bay changes significantly overnight. The beach is extraordinary. The regulatory moat around the business model is one vote wide. Number 3, Port Douglas and Palm Cove, Queensland. These two sit close enough geographically that they belong together, but they are in different phases of their property cycles right now, which makes them useful to compare. Port Douglas is at the northern end of a stretch of far north Queensland coast where 4 Mile Beach, a long, calm, palm-fringed bay, meets the outer edge of the Great Barrier Reef. The tropical dry season, May to October, brings the kind of weather that makes people move here permanently. The unit market at Port Douglas has long-term gross rental yields running at close to 8% for well-positioned stock. The house market is currently in a correction. Median prices fell 14% over the past year to $1,032,500, and properties are sitting on market for up to 99 days. For buyers with cash and patience, that correction looks like an entry window. For anyone who bought at the peak 18 months ago, it looks different. Palm Cove, 70 kilometres south, is in the opposite phase. Median house values rose 15% in the past year to $1,150,000. Median unit values rose 33.80% to $535,000. The demographic driving this is affluent retirees and professional owner-occupiers who have pushed the median age of the suburb above 50. Palm Cove has an esplanade lined with ancient melaleuca trees, boutique restaurants, and a beach that faces northeast into calm morning water. It is the kind of place people move to when they have made their money and want somewhere beautiful to spend it. The trap across both markets is the same. Both sit inside active cyclone corridors. Building insurance in far north Queensland regularly exceeds $5,000 to $10,000 annually for standard dwellings, and the wet season from November to April brings genuine weather risk alongside the drop in tourist demand. Port Douglas short-term rental occupancy falls to 29% in February. These are not reasons to avoid either location. They are reasons to model the full 12 months, not just the dry season, before buying anything. Number 2, the Whitsundays, Airlie Beach and Hamilton Island. Whitehaven Beach, on Whitsunday Island, is 7 kilometres of sand composed of 98% pure silica. The sand does not retain heat. In the shallow lagoons at the northern end of the beach, the combination of pure sand, clear water, and Queensland sun creates a colour that appears digitally altered in every photograph taken there and is not. This is the physical geography that made the Whitsundays internationally famous. and it is the backdrop for two very different property markets operating less than 20 kilometers apart. Airlie Beach, on the mainland, is standard freehold property. Median houses are at $1,135,000, up 72% in a single year, one of the strongest growth rates of any coastal market in Australia. Units at $671,500, up 22.40%. These are numbers that reflect genuine, intense demand from buyers who want access to the Whitsundays without the structural complexity of buying on a private island. Hamilton Island is not standard freehold property. Hamilton Island Enterprises holds a perpetual crown lease from the state of Queensland, and when you buy on Hamilton Island, you are not buying land. You are buying a sublease of that crown lease, typically structured as shares in a property management company that conveys exclusive occupancy rights to a specific villa or apartment. The crown lease has an initial term expiring in 2078, with the ability to roll into successive 99-year terms, hence the countdown clock in the hook. The practical traps on Hamilton Island are layered. Settlement takes 60 to 90 days instead of the standard 30, because you need written transfer consent from the Crown, from Hamilton Island Enterprises, and from any mortgagees of the head lease. Foreign buyers face a 7% additional foreign acquirer duty on top of standard stamp duty. The short-term rental market runs net yields of 5 to 6% after the island's mandatory management commission of 15%, cleaning fees of 10%, body corporate levies, utility outgoings, and buggy maintenance, all of which are non-negotiable costs built into the lease structure. Premium villas sell for $3,250,000. There is also a tax advantage most buyers do not know about. Because the land is leasehold, private owners are entirely exempt from Queensland land tax. And transactions structured as company share transfers can result in significant stamp duty savings because duty is calculated on marketable securities rather than real property rates. The island is genuinely beautiful. The legal architecture around owning part of it is genuinely complex. These two things are both true simultaneously. Number 1. Lord Howe Island, New South Wales. Lord Howe Island sits in the Tasman Sea 600 kilometres northeast of Port Macquarie. It has a lagoon enclosed by the world's southernmost coral reef, twin volcanic peaks that rise almost 900 metres straight out of the ocean, and a permanent population capped by law at 400 people. The island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is allowed a maximum of 400 tourists at any one time, and it has the most deliberately, systematically anti-speculative property laws of any location in Australia. Here is what you cannot do on Lord Howe Island. You cannot buy freehold land. It does not exist. All land belongs to the Crown. Residential perpetual leases are restricted to verified islanders, people with documented connection to the permanent community. If you are not an islander, you can only acquire a lease if no islander is willing or able to purchase it, which functionally means the market is closed to outside buyers except in rare circumstances. Here is what happens if you do somehow acquire a lease. You are required to occupy the property as your principal place of residence for at least 6 months of every year. If you do not live there, you are in breach of your lease conditions. Holiday letting is heavily restricted and permitted only under exceptional circumstances. And when you sell, your sale price cannot exceed the sum of the fair market value of your interest in the unimproved land plus the approved improvements, as determined by the New South Wales Valuer General. The government caps your profit, not as a tax, as a hard price ceiling enforced through the lease conditions. The Lord Howe Island Act 1953 and the Local Environmental Plan 2010 together limit new dwelling construction to 25 homes over a 20-year period. The entire regulatory framework was designed to do one thing: prevent Lord Howe Island from becoming a speculative asset market. It has succeeded completely. There is no investment case for Lord Howe Island because the law makes investment impossible by design. And here is why that matters beyond Lord Howe Island specifically. The island is listed consistently among the most beautiful places in the world. It has a lagoon that rivals anything in the Caribbean or the Maldives in terms of clarity and color. It has a community of 400 people living on a World Heritage Site in one of the most intact natural environments in the Southern Hemisphere. The regulatory framework that makes it uninvestable is also the regulatory framework that makes it what it is. Every anti-speculation law, every residency covenant, every price cap is a direct reason why Lord Howe Island still looks the way it looks, and why it will still look that way in 50 years, while the resorts on South Mole Island are rotting into the Whitsunday rainforest. The traps at Lord Howe Island are not traps. They are the entire point. You cannot own it the way you own other things. You can only live there, and only if the community decides that is what you are going to do. 7 beaches. 7 versions of turquoise water and white sand. 7 completely different sets of rules governing what you can do with them and what happens when you try. The water looks the same from the shore. The fine print is where Australia distinguishes itself from the Bahamas. If you want more of the Australian coastal stories that the real estate brochures do not cover, subscribe. We go deep every week.